It's June, which means it's Pride Month once again, and in celebration of all the great LGBTQ+ heroes that grace our comic pages and the great queer creators that help bring them all to life, DC is offering up a brand new special anthology issue. So with all that in mind, let's hop on in together, shall we? Now keep in mind this is a massive 80+ page giant filled with not only stories but pinups as well. I'm not going to be able to cover every single thing in detail, but I'll try to get to most of it. Like this really great foreword from Mark Andreyko. I know there was a time as a fan when he was the only out gay person in comic books that I knew of. And in this article he goes into detail about his own career and struggles and how he's come out the other end as probably one of the foremost elder statesmen of LGBTQ comic creators, and how touched he is to see so many more people like him come after him and follow in his footsteps. It's a great read if you're interested in comic book history. I would say most definitely don't skip this one if you pick up the book. Now, starting things off properly, we have a Batwoman story from James Tynion. Tynion, you might remember, already did great work with Kate Kane in his Detective Comics run, and I'm happy to say we get more of the same here. This story actually deals with Batwoman's relationship to her sister Beth, who later went on to become the supervillain known as Alice. As the two little girls grew up, they would play a game together called Mirror. Basically, Alice would try and make Kate into a carbon copy of herself, which was hard to do because even back then it was clear that Kate wasn't like other little girls, especially not like her sister. All of this is shown through some truly stunning color work in the art for this story, wherein the two sisters are literally opposite each other's own palettes. Kate's feelings of being different and not fitting in would only get worse when her sister died. Kate would refer to it as feeling like she was forever stuck on the other side of her sister's perfect mirror. This is Tynion, of course, working a really great allegory for Kate coming to terms with her own orientation as a gay woman. Now, in the present, Batwoman is hot on the trail of her sister, only to realize that Alice is being controlled by the Mad Hatter. And wow, it actually took them this long to do a Mad Hatter in Wonderland Alice story. I am genuinely shocked over here. Hatter offers the use of his technology to try and bring both sisters back together by curing them, quote-unquote, of their negative feelings and turning them into beautiful, positive Alices once more. Naturally, Kate and her sister refuse and join forces to defeat the Mad Hatter. It's a real winner, and I can see why this story led the pack. Next up, we got a story involving Giorgio de la Vega, actually DC's very first out gay character, a character who also had AIDS at one point. He tells a story to John Constantine while at the Time in a Bottle bar, DC's most prominent superhero gay bar, in case you were wondering. The story involves an adventure wherein De La Vega and Midnighter join forces to defeat a Nazi vampire who was trying to change history with the stolen bones of Patroclus, also known as Achilles' lover. Overall, this is a real solid actioner. I applaud the use of so many different sorts of heroes in one story. Next up is Renee Montoya the Question, who's actually had quite a few good publication months between this and the other history of the DC universe. As we join the story, Montoya is trying to rescue a crusading politician from some lowlives, only to realize, hey, this woman was totally fine on her own and managed to save herself. All the same, though, the woman is grateful to the Question and even a little smitten with her, despite the fact that her and Renee had done battle in the courtroom back when Renee was still a cop. Seriously, why doesn't the Question have some manner of ongoing? Stories like this are a perfect example of how you can mash up so many great superhero stories and neo-noir stories and put as many little twists on them as you want. Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy get a little story, naturally, as thanks to the new cartoon show, they're probably DC's most prominent gay couple. Their story is really meta, too, as Harley and Ivy talk about how they never really got the chance to talk about their relationship before in the mainline books, but now they finally get the chance to. It's sweet, it's brief, it's good stuff. After that, we get probably the biggest and heaviest story of the collection so far. Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, who officially came out during Infinite Frontier, is going to meet his son Obsidian and his boyfriend for the very first time. Naturally, for his son, there's a lot of questions that he has for his estranged father, and using the power of the Green Lantern, Alan is able to take us and him on a walking tour of his own life, his early loves, and how gay rights have improved and stayed the same over the last couple decades. Overall, this ends up being a really good, feel-good type of story, with Alan admitting that getting to see his son be happy and content was a big reason why he wanted to come out of the closet himself this late in life and show him and others that they don't need to be alone anymore. Kid Quick, the non-binary Flash from Future State, gets a fun little story in this one too, with them struggling to try and pick out a bunch of clothes for themselves before eventually defeating a new version of the Mirror Master, calling themselves Reflect. It's not just heroes who get to have all the fun in this anthology either, as we also get a story featuring Pied Piper trying to stop a new villain calling themselves Drummer Boy from using his old tech to rob a bunch of rich people at a benefit. As it turns out, a corrupt landlord is desperately trying to price all the gay people out of their own neighborhood by raising their rent so high no one can afford it, and without Pied Piper swooping on in to save the day, Drummer Boy decided to take the law into his own hands. Piper, seeing a lot of himself in Drummer Boy, decides to join forces with him, and together they force the corrupt landlord to sell the neighborhood to Piper directly, as he will do a better job protecting it and the people who live there. Honestly, that sounds like a pretty solid pitch for a miniseries if you ask me. After that, we get a story featuring Dreamer, the original superhero from CW's Supergirl show, making her first canon debut in this collection. I didn't actually watch that far into the show, so I'm not exactly sure what to say except for good for her and moving on. Now, the big flashy finale of this anthology focuses on Jackson Hyde, the Aqualad, attending his very first Pride Parade alongside Del Vega's magical apprentice. The festivities come under attack by Eclipso of all people, who's decided now would be a perfect time to feed on all the fear, sadness, and rejection that people in the crowd carry around with them. Aqualad heroically jumps into the fray at great personal risk to himself, but ultimately the day is saved when Del Vega reappears with every other LGBTQ hero who didn't get featured in this one-shot for one hell of a splash page. In fact, Del Vega even floats the idea of a brand new team, the JLQ, which should totally be a thing moving forward, though everyone admits they should probably workshop the name just a little bit harder. And thus the day is saved and everyone is finally free to live and love and not need to hide and be loud and proud as they want to be. And so that was DC Pride #1, everybody, and you can tell for their first attempt at a Pride celebration book, everyone from writers to artists brought their absolute A-game. I thought this was a real love letter to so many different types of characters who never seem to get the spotlight that they deserve. I also appreciate the collection for covering so many different superhero genres. We got action, we got romance, we got mystery and intrigue. They weren't all one type of story because gay superheroes aren't a monolith. Furthermore, I'm sure for a lot of people this series is going to be super rewarding to see queer heroes like themselves not only battling the forces of oppression, but truly thriving too. I hope we see some spin-offs from this book, or if not, I hope DC Pride becomes a regular thing, because, I'd be happy to review this one every year. Overall, I'd give this one a 9 out of 10. Solid stuff.
Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cape Joel, and if you're seeing me right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, which I am very appreciative of. It really helps drive engagement and retention and all that other good YouTube stuff. So does liking and commenting. Wink wink. If you like my content too, you should check out my Patreon page. We just redid all the tiers, so there's a ton of great rewards. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, and well, it would just really help me out. It's never expected, but always appreciated. So until next time everyone, I've been Cape Joel, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.